Okay, so as we said that sound is basically propagated because of the compressions and the rarefactions. Okay, so compressions means when there is a pressure increase, wherein there is a increase in the density. Okay, when there is a decrease in the volume, so in that case we have a compression. Okay, just like a sponge, when I compress a sponge, its volume will get decreased, its density will increase, its pressure will increase. Okay, the basic point is density. So the density will going to increase when I compress a sponge, and it will decrease when I elongate a sponge. So it means in the case of compression we would going to have a higher density, and in case of rarefaction we would going to have a lower density. But is it like that density in the compression is completely same and is throughout the same, and density in the rarefaction is throughout the same? No, it do not happen. What happens is, when there is a compression zone created, the density gradually increases, and when there is a rarefaction zone created, their density gradually decreases. It is not like that density in a compression zone is throughout same, or density in a rarefaction zone is throughout same. It do not happen. So let's understand the very important point of pressure and density variation in compression and rarefaction. Okay, pressure and density variation in compression and rarefaction, that how basically the density changes. For example, if I consider a situation let's say I consider that a tuning fork created, okay, let's say I consider a tuning fork which created compression and rarefaction zones, and let's represent those zones like this. Okay, this is a compression zone and this is a rarefaction zone, and again you have a compression zone, and again you have a rarefaction, then compression zone, and so on. Okay, so it is not like that the density throughout this throughout this compression, or the pressure throughout this compression remains same, or it do not happen that throughout this rarefaction the pressure is same. It is not like that. There is no fixed wall which can differentiate exactly between the compression and the rarefaction. So we will write here the pressure and density is not same throughout a compression or a rarefaction. Okay, rather it changes gradually. So rather it changes gradually. It is not like it's throughout same through a compression and then suddenly decreases and then suddenly increases, then suddenly decreases, then suddenly increases. This is not the situation. The situation is, it first in a compression it goes on increasing, then it decreases, and after that when it comes to a rarefaction it goes on decreasing. Then when suddenly when the compression achieves, when it achieves to a compression, or we can say it goes towards a compression, the density and the pressure increases slowly and then decreases and increases. So the situation that we can represent would be something like this. For example, if I talk about compression and rarefaction, see, in the air there is some average pressure and average density. Okay, so let's represent this line as the line for average pressure and density. That is the normal pressure and normal density in the air. When there is no sound, okay, in that case also we will going to have some pressure and some density in the air, okay. But when there is sound, what will happen? The pressure will going to increase above this normal average and the average pressure and average temperature, average density, okay. Or when there is an elongation, that is when there is a rarefaction, it's not like the pressure will going to be in negative, okay. The pressure is not zero. So we will say in case of rarefaction, the pressure will going to decrease below this average pressure. In case of compression, it will going to increase above this average pressure. That is normal atmospheric pressure you have, okay. So this is the average pressure, that is normal atmospheric pressure. Now when there is a compression zone, you will find that the pressure in this zone will not going to increase suddenly, it will going to increase gradually, okay. So exactly in the middle of the compression zone, you will going to have a pressure which is the maximum pressure and density, and exactly in the middle of a rarefaction zone, you will going to have a minimum pressure and density, okay. In case of a compression, the pressure would be maximum at the middle point, okay. In case of a compression, the pressure would be maximum in between, exactly in midway, and suddenly when you approach a rarefaction, the pressure will going to decrease and it will go to the average, and then when you approach the middle point of this rarefaction, the pressure will going to decrease more and reaches a minimum value. And after this, when you again reaches a compression, the pressure will going to increase, and then after the increment, the pressure will going to achieve again a maximum value like this, and it will go like this, okay, like this and then like this. So this will travel like in this manner. Okay. So what you will find that when you approach a compression, the pressure will gradually decrease, okay. So once you approach the midpoint of the compression, okay, the pressure is maximum, that is the pressure and density, and once you leave this midpoint, if you go towards a rarefaction, what will happen? The pressure will gradually decrease, and in the middle of a rarefaction, the pressure will be suddenly decreased to a minimum value, or I can say the gradually decreased to minimum value. Once it reaches an average, okay, and after average it will become minimum, and once again you approach a compression, it will again going to increase, and once again if you go to a rarefaction, the pressure will again going to decrease. So this cycle will go on, this will continue, okay. This is how the sound will going to propagate. Please don't get confused seeing this kind of picture as this is a transverse wave. Do not take it as a transverse wave, it is just the graph of sound wave, okay. It is just the pressure, the graph of a pressure and density of the sound wave, okay. You just need to understand this graph, nothing else. There is no kind of numericals you will face based on this graph. You just simply understand this graph, okay. So what I can say, this is the graph of the pressure, in how the pressure and density is changing inside this compressions and rarefactions, okay. So we have some terms related to these graphs, okay, to understand, and using that terms as well, some important terms which are related to sound waves, okay. So let's understand them one by one. Okay, so the first point that we have to understand is crest and trough. Now what is crest? We understood in the transverse wave, the crest means the maximum distance travelled from the mean position, okay. The particle, the maximum distance that a particle can travel from its mean position will be known as the crest, okay. And what is trough? The maximum distance travelled in the negative direction, in the opposite direction from the mean position, that will give you the trough. So here we can see the crest means, in this case, since it's a longitudinal wave, we will say that the point at which the pressure is maximum will be known as the crest, and the point at which the pressure is minimum will be known as the trough. So here we will find crest means the point of maximum pressure or density as well, you can write the point of maximum pressure or maximum density. And what is trough? Trough means the point of minimum pressure or density. So the point where the pressure is minimum is known as the trough, and the point where the pressure is maximum is known as the crest. So you can see here, this is a crest, this is a trough, this is again a crest, this is again a trough, this is again a crest, and similarly you will have a trough. So in this way we can say this is like the crest or the peak point, okay, and trough means the bottommost point. So this is the peak point, this is the bottommost point. Now the next terminology is the amplitude. Now amplitude is a bit important point. See, what is amplitude is? Amplitude means the maximum variation compared to the average. You can see here the maximum pressure that can be changed is this much, okay, this point represents the maximum pressure. What is the average pressure? Average pressure is this much. This is the line for average pressure. So amplitude represents the maximum pressure variation that can happen, okay, compared to the average value. So you can see average value is this one and maximum is this one. So the distance between these two, will be known as the amplitude. Amplitude can be represented by capital A. So it represents the maximum variation compared to average value. Okay, compared to average value. So you need not to get confused with the crest and trough and amplitude. Amplitude means the distance, that is the measurement, it's a quantity which can be measured. But the crest and trough are the points that we can locate on this graph. Okay, so since amplitude is a quantity, it also has a unit. The unit of amplitude here, unit will be, now since, see, the graph that I have made is either of either of pressure or either of density. So I will say the unit of amplitude will be either as the unit of pressure or unit of density. Either it is the unit of pressure or it is the unit of density. Now the third term that we have to understand is oscillations. Now oscillation, now what is oscillation? You can see that there is a pressure variation, there is a density variation. The variation is happening in a fixed way. Okay, how it is happening? The first is pressure is increased, okay, till the maximum point, then it goes down to the minimum point, and then again it increases, okay, then again it goes to the minimum point, then again it increases. So what you can see, there is a cycle, okay, there is a cycle, and that cycle is the pressure goes from maximum to minimum, then again come back to maximum. So I will say when this one cycle completes, that is when pressure moves from maximum to minimum and then again minimum to maximum, this is known as one oscillation. we call this as one oscillation. Okay, this is known as one oscillation. So how will we write the definition of it? We will say the pressure, the change in pressure or density from maximum to minimum, then minimum to maximum again will represent one oscillation. So let's write it here. The change in pressure from maximum to minimum and again minimum to maximum will represent one oscillation. Okay, it will represent one oscillation, maximum to minimum, then again minimum to maximum. Okay, so first to note these points, then we will continue with some more terminologies. Okay, so let's understand the next terminology, that is frequency. Okay, so frequency is the next terminology, which is again important terminology. Now what is frequency? If I talk about, let's take it in general term, what is frequency? For example, if I talk about your heartbeat, okay, how your heart basically beat, okay, once it is in a relaxed mode, okay, it get compressed and it then it again come back to the relaxed mode. Okay, so what is happening when your heart go to a compression and then again come back to the same position, it represents one beat. So if this is my heart, it is in this position, it goes like this and then come back, so this is one beat. We can say this as one oscillation, okay, or we can say this is one complete cycle. So how the heart beat, how the heart supply the blood, in a way how the heart pumps the blood is, it is in a relaxed mode, then it compresses and then come back to the original position. So this is this complete one cycle in which the heart pumps the blood. Okay, so frequency represents how many such cycles can be completed in one unit of time. Okay, so how many such cycles can be completed in one unit of time is represented by the term frequency. For example, if I say that, let's say your heart beat 60 times, let's say your heart complete 60 cycles in 1 minute. So what I will say, in 1 minute your heart is completing 60 cycles like this. Okay, please remember, one complete cycle means normal position, then compressed and then go back to the normal. So this completes one cycle. So in 1 minute the heart is completing 60 cycles, 60 such cycles. Okay, so I will say the frequency of heart is 60 cycles per minute. So in this way, in case of sound as well, we define the frequency. Now what is frequency? As we have heard the term oscillation. Okay, in case of sound, the oscillation means from maximum to minimum and then minimum to again maximum. So maximum, minimum, then maximum. This completes one cycle. So how many such cycles the sound wave can complete in 1 second will be known as the frequency. Okay, so what we will say, the frequency here is defined as, it is defined as the number of cycles or number of cycles oblique, let's write oscillation of pressure or density that can be completed in 1 second. So how many oscillations of this pressure and how many oscillations of the density can be completed in 1 second will going to represent the frequency. You can see here the pressure varies from maximum to minimum and then minimum to maximum. This completes one cycle, one oscillation, and then from maximum to minimum, then again to the maximum, this completes second oscillation. So how many oscillations it can complete in 1 second? That will represent the frequency of the sound. Okay. So this way, in this way we can represent the frequency, and if I talk about the unit of frequency, so unit of frequency is in cycles per second. Okay. So how many cycles can be completed in 1 second will represent the unit of frequency, and we have one more unit of frequency, that is hertz. Okay. Hertz is another unit of frequency. Hertz is basically from the name of a very famous person, a very famous researcher, a physicist who worked a lot in the field of sound. His name is Heinrich Hertz. Okay. To give a respect to this person, we have a unit hertz which is used for representing the frequency. Okay. So cycles per second or hertz is known as the frequency. So if I say that sound has a frequency of, let's say, 30 cycles per second, or if I say the sound has a frequency of 30 hertz per second, so what does this mean? It means that this pressure variation, okay, this oscillation of pressure, this 30 times this oscillation can happen in every 1 second. Okay, in every 1 second the pressure goes from maximum to minimum to maximum, then maximum to minimum, then maximum 30 times. So 30 times this cycle is getting repeated, 30 oscillations are happening in 1 second. That's why we say the frequency of sound is 30 oscillations per minute, or 30 oscillations per second, or 30 cycles per second, or 30 hertz. So in this way we used to represent the frequency of the sound waves. Okay. Remember, the frequency can change. It is not like frequency is a constant phenomena. The frequency of sound is not a fixed frequency, it can vary. So if I talk about the audible range, that what frequency of sound humans can hear, so humans can hear all the frequencies, all the sound which are between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Okay, this represents the audible range of human. So any sound which has a frequency between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, okay, can be easily heard by we can easily sense that sound. Okay. The other units of frequency can be kilohertz. Okay, k hertz, that is 1k, or we can say 1000 hertz. Okay, kilohertz means 1000 hertz, and we have one more frequency as megahertz, MHz. MHz, megahertz represents 1 and then 6 zeros, that is 1 million. Okay, 6 zeros means 1 million, that is 10 lakh. So 1 megahertz is 1 million hertz. Okay, so we can say audible range is 20 hertz to, see this 3 zeros, we can say 1000 hertz means 1 kilohertz, so I can write it as 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is the audible range. This is the range in which I can hear the sound. Okay. Other animals have different frequency ranges, because it's not like everyone has the same kind of ear. Human has the ear which can sense only this frequency. Other objects, for example bee, and there are various other animals, for example snake, and there are many animals which live underground. They can hear, many insects also, they can hear the different frequencies of sound as well. Okay. Okay, so this is all about frequency. First to note this, then we will understand one more interesting terminology.